"You don't belong here," she snapped, arms crossed, glaring at me like I'd just broken into Fort Knox. I had just pulled up to my own neighborhood. Yes, my neighborhood, when this woman I'd never seen before stormed over, claiming I was trespassing. At first, I thought maybe it was a misunderstanding. I mean, I live here. I pay my HOA dues like everyone else. But she wasn't asking questions, she was accusing me. Loudly, in front of people. Now, I don't usually get into drama, but something about how confident and rude she was really pushed my buttons. I stayed calm, told her I was a resident, and even tried to explain, but she wouldn't hear it. She insisted I didn't look like someone who lives here. Whatever that asterisk means. I could see her gearing up to call security or worse. That's when I reached into my bag, pulled out the one thing she never saw coming, the master HOA key. Her face, priceless asterisk. But the story didn't end there. Oh no. That key turned what should have been a quiet day into a neighborhood-wide showdown I never saw coming. And what I learned about her, the HOA, and what was really going on behind those gates. Let's just say, things got a whole lot messier. Stick around, this one's worth it. So there I was, standing at the gate, master HOA key in hand, while this woman, let's call her Karen, looked like she'd just seen a ghost. She didn't say anything at first, just stared, probably trying to figure out how the trespasser she was so sure didn't belong just opened the gate without hesitation. And not with a code, with the actual key asterisk. The same key only HOA board members and authorized residents have. But even that didn't stop her. Instead of backing off, she doubled down. "Where'd you get that? You could have stolen it," she snapped. Her voice was rising again, drawing even more attention. A couple of neighbors were watching now from across the street, pretending to walk their dogs, but clearly eavesdropping. Here's the thing, I've lived in this community for almost 5 years. I volunteer with the HOA maintenance team, which is how I got the key in the first place. Karen, on the other hand, I'd never seen her before. Turns out she was new asterisk. Like, moved in 2 weeks ago new. And apparently, she thought that gave her the right to patrol the streets like a rent-a-cop. What I didn't know at the time was that this wasn't just about one nosy neighbor. There was something deeper going on with the HOA, and Karen was just the beginning. Karen didn't back down. In fact, she stepped in closer, eyes narrowed, like she was trying to sniff out a lie. "You volunteer with the HOA. That's convenient," she said, full of sarcasm, like she'd just cracked some big conspiracy. At that point, I could feel my patience wearing thin, but I kept it together. I told her she could call the HOA president if she wanted. I even offered to wait with her. But instead of making the call, she pulled out her phone and started snapping pictures of me, my car, even my license plate. That's when things started to get real. Within the hour, I got a call, not from Karen, but from the HOA president himself. Apparently, someone had already filed a complaint, and guess what? She wasn't just a nosy neighbor. Karen was trying to get me reported for unauthorized access, claiming I'd been intimidating and refused to leave a gated area I didn't belong in. The whole thing was flipped upside down. Then I found out she'd already been emailing board members, even ones I hadn't met yet, pushing for stricter security protocols and questioning how keys were distributed. It started sounding less like a misunderstanding and more like someone trying to reshape the whole community to fit her idea of who deserved to live there. At the same time, other residents began quietly reaching out. One neighbor told me Karen had already reported a delivery driver for parking too long. Another mentioned she'd gotten into it with a teenager skateboarding on the sidewalk. Piece by piece, it was becoming clear. This wasn't just about me or the gate. Karen was trying to set a tone for the whole neighborhood. But why? What was she really after? And more importantly, who was letting her get away with it? The days after Karen's complaint felt like a ticking time bomb. Every time I stepped outside, I kept an eye out for her, wondering when she'd try to confront me again. But it wasn't just her. The entire vibe in the neighborhood shifted. People started acting like they were walking on eggshells around her, even when they didn't know the full story. Some avoided me completely, while others seemed too scared to speak up, afraid of what Karen might do next. It was like she had some weird kind of power now, and the more she pushed her agenda, the more it felt like people were starting to believe her. Meanwhile, the HOA was dragging its feet on taking any action. I kept getting these vague responses about investigating the matter or gathering information. The longer they took, the more nervous I got. Karen was clearly building an army of supporters, people who had no idea what was really going on. I couldn't just sit back and wait for someone to fix this. Then, out of nowhere, I got a text from a neighbor, a guy I barely knew, who said he had something important to tell me. When I met up with him, he looked around nervously before saying, "You need to know what Karen's been doing. It's worse than you think. She's trying to get rid of anyone who doesn't fit her ideal neighborhood. You're just one target, but there's more." I was stunned. Who was this woman? I had no idea what she'd been whispering to people, but I could feel the walls closing in. The HOA was being more passive by the day, and I realized the truth. If I didn't act soon, Karen would win. But how could I expose her for what she really was, without making myself the next target? That night, I made a decision. I was going to confront Karen one last time. I needed to know everything, and I needed to put an end to it before it destroyed the neighborhood. But when I showed up at her house to face her, what I saw next made my blood run cold. The gate she'd tried to stop me from unlocking wasn't just a barrier for the neighborhood. It was the key to something far more dangerous. As I stood there, staring at Karen's house, a cold shiver ran down my spine. The gate that she had made such a fuss about, it was wide open, but it wasn't just any open gate. It was the kind that led to a restricted section of the neighborhood, a section that was off-limits to everyone. I'd only ever seen it in HOA maps, and only a few select people even knew it existed. And here Karen was, casually standing in front of it, as if she had access like it was no big deal. I hesitated. Something didn't feel right. I had always assumed the restricted area was for maintenance or something that had to do with the community's history, old storage, utilities, whatever. But the way Karen was standing there, acting like it was nothing, I realized I might have been wrong about everything. There was a dark, quiet energy to that gate now that I couldn't ignore. And Karen, she wasn't just playing some small-town power trip. She was hiding something. My heart was racing, but I had to know what was going on. So I took a deep breath and approached her. "What's behind this gate, Karen?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but I could hear the edge in it. She glanced at me, almost as if she were waiting for me to ask, like this was part of the game. "Don't worry about it," she replied, brushing it off, but I could see the way her hand twitched towards something inside her jacket. For a split second, I wondered if she was carrying something, maybe a weapon. But no, it didn't make sense. Why would she need that? It wasn't until she muttered, "You shouldn't have come here," that I realized how deep this was going. Then it hit me. This wasn't just about her wanting control. There was something bigger at play, and I wasn't sure I was ready for it. But as I turned to walk away, the sound of footsteps echoed behind me. Too heavy, too deliberate. I froze. Turning slowly, I saw two figures emerging from the shadows, both wearing dark jackets that concealed their faces. One of them had a key, identical to the HOA master key I'd used, and they were heading straight for the gate. The same gate Karen had insisted was off-limits. Only, they didn't seem to be stopping. And Karen, she wasn't stopping them either. What in the world was happening here? And why hadn't anyone told me the truth? I stood there, my mind racing, unsure of whether I should run or confront them head-on. But one thing was for sure, this wasn't just a neighborhood squabble anymore. This was something I wasn't prepared for, and if I didn't act fast, I might just find myself in over my head. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest as the two figures moved closer. The one holding the key glanced at Karen, then back at the gate. The weight of the situation hit me all at once. I wasn't just dealing with a Karen trying to make my life difficult. I was standing in front of something much more dangerous. These people, whoever they were, clearly had the same key I'd used earlier, but they didn't seem like ordinary HOA members. There was no way this was just a dispute over access. This was bigger. I didn't know what to do. Should I call the police? Should I confront them directly? But before I could make a decision, Karen spoke again. "It's too late for that now. You should have stayed out of it," she said, her voice strangely calm, almost like she was welcoming this moment. I stepped forward, my voice trembling. "What is this? What's really behind that gate?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned to the two figures and nodded. They opened the gate, revealing a small underground facility that none of us had ever seen before. The space was lined with security equipment, screens, wires, and servers. My stomach sank as I realized this was no normal maintenance area. This was a high-tech setup, something much more elaborate than anything the HOA should have been involved in. "What is this?" I repeated, this time to the figures, my eyes locked on them. One of them finally spoke, his voice gravelly. "This is what the neighborhood was built on. You were never meant to find out." He motioned to Karen. "She's been keeping it hidden for years." I could barely process the words. "Hidden? What do you mean? What is this?" Karen finally looked me dead in the eyes. "This whole place was a front," she said, the coldness in her voice sending a shiver down my spine. "The HOA wasn't just about maintaining the neighborhood. It was about controlling who lived here. About surveillance, data collection, all of it. I've been part of it for a long time, making sure certain people don't get too close to the truth." My mind was reeling. This wasn't just a neighborhood issue anymore. It was a scheme, a network, and I'd stumbled right into the middle of it. My HOA key wasn't just a tool to maintain the community. It was the key to an entire hidden operation. I didn't have time to process it all. As I turned to run, a voice cut through the chaos. "It's too late for you." It was the second figure. He'd pulled something out of his jacket, an envelope. He tossed it at my feet, and when I picked it up, my eyes went wide. Inside were papers with the HOA logo stamped across them, but they weren't community guidelines. They were contracts, agreements that mentioned the surveillance systems, the data collection, and, most shockingly, *me*. I had unknowingly signed away my privacy the moment I joined the HOA maintenance team. I felt the floor drop beneath me. I was caught in something far bigger than I'd ever imagined. And then, as if on cue, the lights flickered. The figures behind me stiffened. There was a loud crash, followed by shouts from the street. The police were here. But when I looked back, Karen and the two figures were gone, vanished into thin air, no trace. It was like they'd never been there at all. I stood in front of the gate, heart racing, the envelope still clutched in my hand. I didn't know who was really behind this operation or how deep it went, but one thing was clear. The HOA wasn't just about home maintenance anymore, and I had only scratched the surface. The final twist. The police weren't here to help me. They were part of it too. They'd known all along. And I had just become the latest person to be caught in a web of secrets that went all the way to the top.